Hello and welcome to the MSU Wealth Management Association podcast. This summer, we are excited to bring back some of our favorite episodes every Monday. We hope you are having an amazing summer and expect new interviews for our next season, Season 9, in September as the school year begins. Thank you for listening and enjoy.
Hello, everyone. This is Lance Mullen, host of the MSU WMA podcast. Today we have joining us special guest Joshua Langford. Josh is a former MSU basketball player and captain who came in as a McDonald's All-American 5-star recruit. During his time at MSU, he scored over 1,000 career points and averaged 10.1 points per game. He also received awards for MSU Co-Best Defensive Player in the 2017-18 season, as well as the Stephen G. Scores Inspirational Player Award in the 2018-19 season. Stay tuned to hear about Josh's story of overcoming adversity with success in his career. Welcome back, everyone, to the MSU WMA podcast. Today we have special guest, former MSU basketball captain and star player, Josh Langford. Josh, it's great to have you on.
Thanks for having me on, man. I'm excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah. So do you want to just start kind of giving everyone a little bit of a background of maybe a little bit of your playing career, kind of coming into MSU as a freshman, star player? Walk us through that, and then a little bit up to maybe when you hit that injury bug and some of the challenges that came along with that.
Mm-hmm. Man, so that's a lot to talk about.
Yeah. We can just start with kind of coming into MSU. What were your expectations? What was that like?
Yeah, well, coming into MSU, I was coming in as a McDonald's All-American. I came in with what some people would call like the class at that time when I was coming in. It consisted of me, Miles Bridges, Cassius Winston, and Nick Ward. All three of those guys are still they're playing professional. And so coming in, we were a very highly touted class. And so honestly, my expectations personally was to, be able to come in maybe 2 years, no more than 2 years at least. And just being real,
Yeah.
And then go play professional, because no other schools that recruited me outside of Michigan State expected me to be in college for longer than 2 years. That was the conversations that I had with them. And so that was kind of my goal, because I had a vision of getting to, it wasn't that I didn't care about education. It wasn't that I didn't think education was valuable, but I just had a mission and a vision for myself at that time in my life. And that was to be the best basketball player I could be. And I felt like that meant me getting to the NBA, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the expectation I had was to come in and just do big things, win a national championship, go to a Final Four, which that did happen, but it didn't happen the way I thought it would in terms of going to the Final Four. So my freshman year was definitely an eye opener, just because, my expectations were here, and then reality was kind of like here. And so I came in and I had kind of a wake-up call, and things didn't necessarily go the way I thought it was going to go. We were a very talented team, but we were just young. And so that was a very tough season for us. And then personally, I had a little physical challenges that I was trying to overcome, just getting used to playing the college game. And, it's such a different pace. It's so fast paced. And so everything about me was getting adjusted, on top of the fact that, I was coming from Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, because that's where I'm from. Sorry, I didn't say that before, but I was coming from Huntsville, Alabama, into this kind of climate where it's a bunch of snow. And I remember looking out of my window one morning, and I seen a lot of snow, and I'm like, okay, I'm going to get an email, right? I'm going to get an email and somebody's gonna tell me that my classes are canceled. And so never got the email, bro. And I'm just like, yo, I'm like, yo, man, what is going on? And so I got my Timberland boots, and went to class. But so it was just a big change for me coming in from Alabama into Michigan, and then also coming in from high school basketball, even though I was a highly touted athlete, into college basketball, because it was just a different game.
Yeah. And you kind of talked about a little bit of the expectations, that big class coming in, and how you didn't really expect it to go, kind of like start off super fast, but
Yeah,
then you ended up starting quite a few games. What was that like when you just started playing and had success?
man, it was great. Because like you said, that's a great opportunity as a freshman to come in. And I think I pretty much started. I mean, I would say at least 95%,
Yeah.
96% of the games. Um, but going back to
Yeah, that's
expectations, right?
awesome.
So the expectation I had was that I was just going to go in and just go crazy.
Hmm.
But my expectation was it was like so strong in me that I couldn't even really realize the fact that, okay, you are a freshman coming into the Big 10, one of the toughest conferences in
Yep.
NCAA basketball, and you're actually starting. You have an opportunity to start under a Hall of Fame coach for a Hall of Fame program. And so many times, like in life, your expectations can be so high, and
Hmm.
not that you shouldn't have high expectations, but they can be so high that you miss out on like the great achievements that you make. So it was like my
Yeah.
expectations were kind of blinding me from the great achievements that I was actually being able to make as
Yeah.
a freshman. That not every freshman, gets to actually say that, okay, I came into a college and I started and I contributed on a very high level.
Yeah. And then going into your sophomore year, what was that like, that off season? You had some success, but it wasn't what you came to do. And then going in, still had that big class, more recruits coming in, a lot more expectations. What was that like?
Man, it was a great year. Like my sophomore year was it was a great year, but then also it was a letdown year because we lost. I think it was to Syracuse in the second
Yep.
round. But that year we went 30-5. I want to
Yeah.
say 30. We won 30 games, and on top of the fact that we were kind of going through a bunch of different just adversity with the stuff that was going on with the school at the time.
Yep.
Um, and so that was kind of challenging, and coach was kind of taking some backlash because of some things that he had said. And so it was kind of like every day when you came into practice, because of the atmosphere that we were in at that time, the climate that the university was under with all the different things that were going on,
Hmm.
we didn't really know how things were going to be with the team and how people would respond to us. And so everybody in the locker room was just kind of like, what's going to happen? Like, but the fact that we were able to still play the way we played and achieve the things that we achieved. I mean, we went to the PK 80. We won the PK 80 that year.
Yep.
We blew out Notre Dame that year. Because that was like, I think Notre Dame may have been number 3. They were like top
Yeah.
5, I think, at that
Yeah. I
time.
remember that.
Yeah, and so like we had a bunch of good games put together. We had a really good year as a team, even though we didn't
Hmm.
make it past the second round. I mean, as a team, we did really good. And then as an individual, personally, I feel like my sophomore year was the year where I was really beginning to get my feet under me. And
Yep.
I got more comfortable with just like the culture of Michigan State basketball. And I had a better understanding of the system, and I had more confidence because I had already played, so many games as a freshman the year before.
Yeah.
So it was like things were beginning to build up for me. personally. And then, like I said, as a team, it was exciting to play. We had Jaren Jackson, we had Miles, we had Nick, we
Yeah.
had Cassius, and Tum Tum was leading us with his leadership, and Matt
Mm-hmm.
McQuaid was like, we had such a deep team that even the people that didn't start, that were coming off the bench, they could have went to any Big Ten
For
team and
sure.
easily started and contributed like on a very high level. So that sophomore year, it was kind of like a year where like I was like, okay, things are really beginning to rise up a little bit.
Yeah. And do you want to kind of walk us through kind of that you had all these expectations, you had a great season, and then you get to the tournament and you guys end up slipping up against a team that you would probably beat 9 times out of 10. Do you kind of want to talk about some of that adversity? What do you do after that? Like, what's the mindset of that?
Yeah, well, I think for starters, um, when you think about adversity or challenges, usually adversity and challenges, they come, or you face challenges when the thing that you feel like you can actually do, you can actually do it. So a lot of times you don't really meet resistance if you're just doing something that that you don't necessarily have the wherewithal to actually do it. But when you have the capacity to actually achieve high level things and you're really pursuing that,
Mm-hmm.
10 times out of 10, or at least 9.5 times or 9.9
Yeah.
times out of 10, you're going to meet adversity. And so, when it comes to like what we experience as a team, I think we had to look at, okay, we didn't make it as far as we wanted to make it. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily fulfill the expectations that we had for ourselves. Now, that doesn't mean that we don't, hold ourselves to that standard, but at the same time, we don't want to get so caught up on that standard that we forget about what we actually accomplished. So going back to what I was
Mm-hmm.
saying personally about myself, and I feel like this is just a life, this is just a life lesson that you can have.
Yeah.
And this is something that you can get like in every aspect of life, because everybody has expectations, and everybody, has dreams, and everybody has goals that they set out for themselves to achieve. And usually when you don't achieve those things, you feel like you maybe set the standard too high, or you feel like you maybe set the standard too low, or you feel like you didn't do enough. But sometimes things just don't work out because life isn't about perfection. Like,
Yeah.
you can do everything right, and sometimes things just don't work out the way that you want
Mm-hmm.
them to work out, and that's okay. And the biggest thing is being able to look back, after it's all said and done, look yourself in the mirror and say, okay, did I do everything that I could do to put myself in the position to be able to fulfill the expectation that I had? And so when
Mm-hmm.
you talk about us as a team, if I look back at that team, my sophomore year, we did everything that we could do to put ourselves in the position to fulfill the expectations that we had. Could we have did something differently in the game? Yes. Did we mess up in the game? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But everybody mess ups in the game. Like, it's a perfect game played by imperfect people.
Yeah.
So you're going to see mistakes. Things are going to happen. Coach may make a bad substitution that if he looks back over the film of the game, he sees like, okay, I could have subbed better, or I could have. You always see that, but all
Yeah.
in all, I think as a team, we really put ourselves in a position to be able to fulfill the expectations that we had, and we just fell short, and we ran, and we couldn't make a shot. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
those things, some of
It
those things are out
happens.
of your control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happens. And I really like that viewpoint. And no matter what, something you can do everything right and everything might not work out the way you want.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then
Yeah.
going off that season into that off season, what was that like? You lose Miles Bridges, Jaren Jackson, a couple of these big name guys. What was that like going in? Like, I have to be this guy. I have to be the leader. What was
Yeah.
that like?
Well, honestly, it was, I think it was like anytime you go through change, it's always challenging, because if you think about the dynamics of our team, the main, like the meat of our team, you know, even when you think about Tum Tum, you think about Cassius Winston, you think about Miles, you think about Nick, you think about Jaren. The meat of our team, well, not, I won't say Jaren, because Jaren came in his freshman year, my sophomore year. But if you think about like that class, we had kind of created some foundation together. Like that team from my freshman year to my sophomore year, you know, we had some people to leave after my sophomore year, but those people, we had kind of developed some kind of like connection and some kind of camaraderie. And so when you have, you know, Ben Carter leave, who was a senior, then you have Gavin Schilling, who was a senior, who left, then Tom, he left, and then Miles decided to leave, and then Jaren decided to leave, and then Nick stayed, Cassius stayed, but it was a lot of different moving pieces. And so it was just kind of like, okay, how are we gonna get back to where we just was after we've kind of lost not everybody, but you know, intricate parts to our team. And like to your point, it was beginning to like, it was a season where, okay, it was time for me to step more into a leadership role and to take more of the weight of, you know, leading the team, not just you know, offensively, but also vocally, in my communication, in my demeanor, in my attitude. And so I was excited because it was something that I really always wanted to be on for the team. And those first 2 years, I just had to fulfill my role, and the role that was best, that was given to me, that would help the team the best. I had to accept that. As challenging as that was a little bit, because you know, coming in as a guy who is highly touted, it's not easy accepting your role, but it's very important to accept your role. And so it came time my junior year where like my role increased, it expanded. And so, you know, I was like, let's go. I was ready. And I really came out, I hit the ground running my junior year, and everything was really clicking the way that I always envisioned things click. And eventually, I think it was 12 games into the season. It was just after I came off almost a 30-point game against Texas. And after that game, a lot of people were really beginning to notice the kind of player that I was. A lot of people were saying that, you know, I was beginning to demonstrate All-American like attributes. And after all of that, I met like you said earlier, I met the injury bug. And that was just crazy, bro. That was crazy, because going back to expectation, I feel like our conversation is still, it's like, it's been around expectations since the time we started talking, but going back to expectations, right? I had an expectation that, okay, this was the year that I was actually going to demonstrate who I really felt like I was internally as a player and who I knew I could be. And as soon as I was beginning to step into that more and more, I hit a wall. And that wall was hard, bro.
I'm sure. I can only imagine. What was that like? You know, you end up hitting a pretty rough injury, and like right in the middle of a great season. What was that like? How do you deal with that?
Yeah, man, it was very challenging. And going back again to like expectations, a lot of times you just have things to take place in life that you just don't see coming. It's like, you know, students, for example, we're in the time where everybody is preparing to take exams, everybody's preparing to do projects and writing and papers and things like that. And so you put all that time into doing the best you can on that paper, or on, that exam, or on that report, or whatever you have to do. And then when you get a chance to actually do it and you get it back, you don't necessarily get the grade that you felt like your investment proves that you should get. And so it was two things that I had to deal with. I had to deal with the fact that I didn't feel like my investment, I didn't feel like I was getting a return on my investment because I put a lot of time. And then I also had to deal with the unexpected. Like I had to deal with the fact that I came into this season thinking that I wasn't going to get injured. I was taking care of my body. Going back to what we said earlier, I was doing everything that I could potentially do that I had control over. And then just boom, here comes this injury. And it was very hard because I had experienced injury in my high school career, but I didn't experience injury to the point to where I was sidelined when I was actually beginning to build momentum in my basketball career. And so thinking that I was going to actually get to play after I found out that I was injured the way I was injured, that was tough too, because I went through a process where I was just in the boot. And so it was just like, day-to-day rest, and we just kind of see how it goes, but it didn't get better. And then when I found out I had to have surgery, and then when I found out that surgery was going to cause me to miss the whole season, that was really challenging. And, I had a GA at the time. We had a GA at that time. His name was Chris Fowl. And he was somebody that I had spent a lot of time with. And we spent a lot of time in the gym together. We had a lot of conversations, even before I got injured. And so we really, at that time, we really grew a very close-knit bond. And he really helped me through my injury at that time, because he encouraged me to see that what I had to offer to the game, or to the team rather, wasn't just limited to my talent on the court. He encouraged me that I could use my voice, that I could still contribute to the team, even though I couldn't contribute to the team the way that I thought that I could, or the way I wanted to. And sometimes in life, you can get so caught up in what you can do that you forget about the other things that you can do. So for me, I was so focused on the fact that, okay, I can really do well for the team on the court with my skills, but I didn't see that I could really do well for the team off the court with my voice. And so that season of my life, going through that injury, it was very, very challenging emotionally and mentally, but it also gave me an opportunity to see myself in a different way. And going back to your question earlier about adversity, sometimes adversity can be a gift, because what it does is it gives you the opportunity to evolve and to change into something or to someone that you never really thought that you could be. And so that injury, that first injury that I went through, it really gave me the opportunity to evolve into more of a person that that knew that basketball was something that I was doing, but it wasn't all of who I was. And so that was the beginning of me really just stepping more into using my voice and seeing myself as a leader, not just on the court, but off the court.
Yeah, and that, I believe that was the year that you guys made that Final Four run. What was that kind of like, being kind of on the sideline, having that different role? Were you kind of like feeling more like a coach, or what was that like, being also a player, but also being able to help the guys on the court?
Yeah. Can I be completely honest with you?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not gonna say nothing crazy. I'm just gonna because you look like I was gonna say something crazy. I'm not gonna say anything crazy. But I remember against the Duke game, I remember that after that game, do you remember that game when we beat Duke in the Elite 8? That was the game before the Final Four. Up until that point, I was really in tune into to what you just described, my role, like I was really like, you know what? I'm gonna step into this role that I just been given in terms of being that, that player coach or whatever you want to call it for the
Mm-hmm.
team. But when we got to the Duke game and we won, I was excited that we won. But
Yeah.
I was also hurt that I couldn't contribute the way that I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I remember having a conversation with our trainer at the time, Nick Ritchie, and we spent a lot of time too, because we were flying back and forth to get my foot looked at, and we were doing things for my foot. And because he was the medical trainer, he was the one that was going with me and, stepping into these different places with me. So we spent a lot of time together. And so we just
Mm-hmm.
kind of began to get a better understanding of each other. And so he knew me. And
Yeah.
so he was the one that actually looked at me and he asked me, like, "Are you okay?" And I can't remember the conversation, but I do remember that conversation actually giving me the space to be honest about how I felt emotionally and how it was challenging to be a part of a winning team,
Yeah.
even though I was a part of a winning team. Does that make sense? So like
Yeah.
I was a part of a team that was
It
winning.
feel I
Go
believe
ahead.
it'd feel weird. Like you're there, but you're not part of what's going on.
Yeah. So it felt like that's what it felt like. And um it was challenging for me. While at the same time, I was very excited that we were actually going to the Final Four. So like, what do
Yeah.
you do? What do you do like when the team that you're on is being successful, but at the same time you feel kind of conflicted because you wanted to be a part of their success in the way that you thought you would? And that goes back to expectations, how we've been talking about the whole time, where, sometimes the role that you feel like you're supposed to have in life, it may not necessarily be the role that um, you want in life.
Mm-hmm.
But just because it's not the role that you want in life, it doesn't mean that that role isn't being it isn't impacting people in a positive way. So
Mm-hmm.
I was being impactful on the team, but it just wasn't the way that I thought it was going to be. And so I was really wrestling with that a little bit. Um, while at the same time, I was excited that we were moving forward as a team. And I think when you just think about leadership, because we're all leaders. Everybody has like John Maxwell, he has this quote that
Mm-hmm.
basically says that leadership is simply influence. And so every human being has the ability to influence. And so because we all have the ability to influence, that means we're all leaders. And so when it comes to like living a lifestyle of leadership, I think sometimes you have to be okay with accepting a role for a particular season in your life or a particular moment that doesn't necessarily align with your expectations, because maybe, I don't know, maybe we wouldn't have went to the Final Four had
Yeah.
I still been playing, because that may not have given some people on the team the opportunity to like step into who they really were, to actually be the best they could be for the team. Like if you look
Yeah.
at Aaron Henry, right? He came in as that was his freshman year. He had no expectations. I feel like I don't think he
Mm-hmm.
really had any expectation. I don't think the coaching staff really had any expectations of
Yeah.
him um, playing as much as he was playing. Maybe that was his sophomore year, not his freshman year. I can't
I
remember.
believe it was freshman year. I
His
think you
freshman
were
year.
right. Yeah, I
Okay, yeah.
think so.
So nobody really had expectations for him to play um, as much as he played, but he did. And look what that did for him as a player, and then look what that
Yeah.
did for us as a team. So, and that's just one point that I'm making, where
Yeah.
sometimes the role that you have to take for a particular time in your life, even though it doesn't align with what you thought, it can really make room for somebody else to
Yeah.
actually step into more of who they can be.
Do you want to kind of touch a little bit more about that? Like, obviously, you had like the expectation that you were going to be in this role, and other guys have to step up. How do you encourage those guys to play at that level and kind of take over a role that they weren't supposed to be in? And do you want to touch a little bit, maybe someone in business like looking to get that shot at some new job, new promotion?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a very good question. I'll go back to what I said earlier. It was challenging because, like I said, I had a vision for myself. But when it comes to being a leader, and when it comes to understanding that leadership isn't about you, it's about the vision. Well, the vision for the team at that time was, and is what it always is to, win a Final Four, win a Big 10, win a national championship. And so I had to step aside. I had to step outside of myself and say, okay, is this about, like, am I going to make this about me, or am I going to make this about the vision? Because if I make it about me, then I won't encourage Aaron or whoever it is that is filling in for me. I won't encourage them to the degree that it can actually benefit him and then also the team. But if I make it about the vision, I will, and I'll be able to lay aside my own ego and my own desire to be that one that is seen per se, and I'll encourage Aaron, and I'll lift him up to the degree, or to the point to where it's helping him be the best he can be, the best Aaron he can be. And then also it's helping the team be the best Michigan State men's basketball team that it can be. And so when it comes to stepping out of a role and having to let someone fill that role that you're in, I think it takes a lot of humility. And humility isn't something that you try to do. It isn't like, oh, I'm just going to be humble. I'm not going to. Humility is simply submitted. Humility is simply, when it comes to business, I think humility is simply pursuing the vision regardless of what happens.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
regardless of what happens, I'm going to keep trying to pursue the vision, whatever that may be. I'm going to keep trying to fulfill that vision. I'm going to keep staying true to the vision, because that's what it's about. But if I begin to make it about me, and I began to make it about what I want, then I put myself in a position to actually be the reason why the particular business or the particular team isn't as successful as it possibly can, because I still had a role. It just wasn't the role that I wanted it to be. But just because I didn't have the role that I wanted, it didn't mean that I still couldn't contribute to the team fulfilling the vision.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. No, I like that. And then through that Final Four run, that had to be just awesome. Obviously came up a little bit short, sadly. But
Yeah.
then going on the following year, you guys brought back that core group that you talked about, and you were kind of still battling that foot and surgeries. Were you kind of expecting to be able to come back and join that team, or what was that kind of like battling with the foot injury?
Yeah, I was definitely expecting to come back and join the team. And it was crazy too, because like a preseason ranking that came out for players, and I had made the rankings, even though I'd only played 12 games that season, that previous season. And so I was like, yeah, let's go. Like
Yeah.
we ready. Like we coming. I'm coming.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was going through my recovery process, and in going through that process, it never once crossed my mind that I wasn't going to be able to play after I came out of that process. Like it never once crossed my mind. But
Yeah.
what happened was my foot was still bothering me a little bit. And I kind of was like, okay, well, maybe that's normal, because the doctor had told me that, it could potentially give you a little bit of discomfort because you haven't used it for such a long time. You being out basically almost, 6 to 8 months.
Yeah.
That's and a lot of and part of those months you literally not even walking on, you're on a scooter. So coming
Hmm.
back, he was like, it may give you a little bit of discomfort. So I was like, okay. But I end up feeling that discomfort, but it just wasn't feeling right. And so I went to talk to my trainer, and he and I were sure that, everything was good. But he was just like, okay, well, let's get an MRI of it to just kind of
Yeah.
see, just for GP, just for good purposes.
Yeah.
And, lo and behold, my foot was fracturing a different way.
Oh,
And bro, that really knocked the breath out of me. And, I know that the only reason why I was able to make it through that, because emotionally, I was just devastated.
I'm
Mentally,
sure.
I was devastated. It was just like somebody had like took my heart out of my body, and I was
Hmm.
trying to like find it.
Yeah.
That's the best way I can describe it.
Yeah.
Uh, and so it was just very challenging, bro. And when I look at when I look at that particular season of my life, I think I know that the only reason that I was able to make it through that, was because of like my faith, and then also the people that I had in my life, including like my teammates and my coaches and my family and, other mentors at that time.
Yeah. And so once that happened, you're kind of like out for the season again. Do you kind of still take on that coaching role and kind of be along with the team? Did you just kind of have to embrace that again?
I could have. I think that would have been the best thing for me to do, but to be honest, I didn't. Just being 100%, like I was still a
Yeah.
part of the team. But if you look at the differences between the years, right? My junior year, when I got injured, I sat at the front of the bench. My
Hmm.
senior year, after I got injured, I sat at the end of the bench. And so I think one of the things that I really learned, about myself and just about life in general, is how important it is um, to really take care of yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
Because looking back on it, I now know that I was like in a state of depression. Now I wasn't clinically diagnosed,
Yeah.
but a particular thing had happened. So it was kind of like situational depression, where something has happened, and because something has happened, it's really done something emotionally. And that's what happened with me. Like I was really in a state of depression because I had these plans. Going back to our previous conversation,
Yeah.
early in our conversation about my freshman year, what I thought I was going to do coming into college, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
That's one expectation that was just like thrown out the window. Then
Yep.
going to my junior year, I had more expectations. That didn't happen. So that's something else you can
Yeah.
throw out the window. And now I'm here at this place again, and it's happening again. And so emotionally, it just really knocked the wind out of me. And I think because I didn't take the time to actually, and everybody around me was like very helpful, but
Yeah.
because I didn't really know personally like the importance of actually taking care of yourself emotionally, because I didn't know the importance of that, I didn't take any steps to making sure that I was healthy in that place. And so because I wasn't in a healthy place, I could no longer be the best version of myself for the team, even though I still had a role on the team. And so
Hmm.
even when it comes to like business, or when it comes to like your professional life, it's very important that you understand that you are a person outside of your job. You are a person outside of your profession.
Yeah.
And if you don't take care of yourself emotionally, and if you aren't really paying attention to that part of yourself, then eventually it's going to bleed off into your profession, and it's going to bleed off into your business, and you won't be able to fulfill the role that you have to the best ability,
Yeah.
to the best of your ability. So yes, I should have been that same guy that I was my junior year, but because I didn't take care of myself emotionally, I couldn't,
Yeah.
and I didn't
And
know to.
yeah. And so when you're kind of like, I feel like when you're thinking about all that all the time, like you had the expectations, and then you're sitting there like, were there any thoughts of, am I going to play basketball again? Like, is
Yeah,
that going through your head too? Like, how was that?
yeah, most definitely, bro. I definitely,
I'm sure like that had to be a thought in the back of your mind, like pretty scary if that's what you do all your life. Like, to see
yeah,
that not happening is,
yeah.
I'm sure, very scary.
It is, bro, because what you said something very, very like profound. It was a part of my life. It was my life.
Yeah.
You know, my identity was so intertwined with the game of basketball that when these things happened, or when these injuries took place, especially the second one, it was just like, man, what is life?
Yeah.
You know, what is, what do I have to offer to the world? What do I have to offer? Because what I know to be my identity has been taken from me. And so
Hmm.
I can no longer say that this is who I am, because my injury is showing me that it's not who I am. My injury is showing me that it's just something that I do, and it's not who I am. It's just an opportunity for me to express who I am. And so
For
because
sure.
I never had that, because I used to say that a lot, but because I never believed it, when the injuries took place, I was scared and I was afraid and I was thinking about, okay, what if I never get a chance to play basketball again? Um, because of, these unfortunate events or these unexpected circumstances that have taken place. And it was very challenging for me. And even after the season, it was a time where I was contemplating whether or not I was going to come back and play. I was just really thinking like, okay,
Yeah.
you know, maybe I just go do something else.
Yeah.
Maybe I just let it go. But I didn't. Um, by grace, I was able to come back and play,
Yeah.
and that was very exciting, because I was able to see, going back to your question about adversity, I was able to see that I don't have to allow the adverse moments in my life dictate my decisions, but I can still move forward and I can still be a winner, even though it may not be the way I thought I would win. I can
Hmm.
still move forward, and in spite of what I may go through. But those two injuries, they really helped me take the time to see who Joshua Langford was outside of basketball. And my red shirt year, my red shirt year, the extra year that I got,
Yep.
I was in a master's program, and when I went through my master's program, that was also when I began to see, like, wow, there's more to me than just the game of basketball. And those injuries, and then going through my master's program, it really began to like evolve, or it just gave me a new perspective on what my life could be like.
Yeah.
Because for so long in my life, I felt like success meant me going to the NBA and me, you know, having like a 10 to 15 year career,
Yep.
and me retiring, and then me being like a TV analyst, and like for so long in my life, that's what I thought success was. But I only had those thoughts because I didn't allow myself to step outside of the game of basketball and see, who am I outside of what I do. And if I had to encourage, or if I had one piece of advice for students,
Yeah.
I would share with them that you are a person before you are a student. And so even though you're here to get an education, even though you're trying to pursue, high level things in business or whatever
Yeah.
it is, it's very important to understand and realize and know that what you do doesn't define you. It isn't who you are. What you do is just an opportunity for you to express who you are. And so we all have different kinds of things that we can do. And we all have different passions, and we all have different gifts that we can contribute to the earth and to human flourishing. And we don't have to just limit ourselves to just one thing.
Yep.
Now, I feel like sometimes in culture, you feel like you have to limit yourself to one thing, but you don't always have to, you don't have to do that. You can be in business, but then you also could be a pastor. You can be in business, but you also could be, whatever,
Yeah.
whatever, you know what I mean? So it's just so
For
many
sure.
things that you can do as a person. But I think when you allow yourself to know that, okay, this is what I do, but it doesn't define me, it gives you the freedom to actually step into all of who you can become. Because
Mhm.
I feel like life isn't really about what can you do, it's more about who you can become. And so
Yeah.
when you allow yourself to not be defined by what you do, you give yourself the freedom to really become all of who you were created to become. It's
Mhm.
almost like you let yourself out of a cage and you just let your wings just flap and you just
Yep.
fly.
It's really interesting to hear, like, after the fact, all this adversity that you've gone through, looking back, you're like, can learn from that. But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure during all this adverse times, it had to be very challenging. But after the fact, you can kind of see it. I like that
Yeah.
viewpoint, being able to understand it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just kind of want to follow up with your final year playing basketball. What was that like? Was it all that you dreamed of? I mean, COVID had a big impact on that. There was a lot of challenges, but did you enjoy the rest of your playing time?
I did because um, I got a chance to play again. It was just kind of like after those two injuries, I didn't know whether or not I would be able to play again. And so just
Yeah,
the simple fact that I got a chance to play again, that was exciting for me. And that season was full of challenges. Like I would
for sure.
sometimes, not sometimes, but I tell people like that was probably more challenging than my injuries, to be honest.
Wow.
Because my injuries, even though I didn't necessarily expect them, it was like I didn't have to, I was out of it was like I was away from the game. And so I got a chance to step away from like the challenges, kind of. But in my last year, it was like so many challenges, but I didn't
Hmm.
get a chance to get away from the challenges. It was like I had to like keep going.
Everywhere.
I had to keep going through the challenges, and they were all over the place. And then even the simple fact that that season was like a very down year for Michigan State basketball in general, not just
Yeah,
not just us as players, but like basketball. So you had all these
yeah,
different things, COVID, and then I got COVID, and then I had some challenges physically again, like, but they weren't challenges that would stop me from playing. They were things that I just had to keep going through because I was just coming back from playing. I mean,
yeah.
from not playing. And so I had so many different challenges going on. And so that was a very tough year, but it was a very exciting year because I got to play. And I think that's just, go ahead.
I wouldn't say you guys had a down year. I mean, obviously from Michigan State standards, you guys probably had a down year, but you guys had some really big wins that year, and you guys were exciting to watch every game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I would say that we had some really good big wins. We had Ohio State, we beat Michigan that year, we beat Illinois, and we really put together some
good stretch.
A good stretch for sure. I was just saying, like, in the grand scheme of things, you know. But yeah, I think that's just kind of a testament to life where you can have exciting things happen, while at the same time you can be having challenges too. But that doesn't mean that you aren't doing the right things, and it doesn't mean that you aren't moving in the right direction.
Yeah. And then just sticking with the basketball topic, what was it like playing for Tom Izzo? What was some of your favorite moments playing with him? Maybe a crazy story that you have with him?
Yeah, it was great playing for Coach. I always tell people that Coach, he helped me with basketball, but what he really helped me with was, like, he taught me leadership. I was talking to somebody the other day, and I was just sharing. I was talking to them about Coach, and I was just saying, Coach is like a great leader, and he'll tell people that he's not the best X's and O's coach, but what he does well is spend time with people and spend time with his players, and he really knows how to pull like the best out of his players.
Yeah,
And I just think that's that's a true that's a true testament to a good leader, a great leader. And he is a great, like, tremendous, phenomenal leader. And that's the
for
biggest thing
sure.
that's the biggest thing I learned from him, like sitting under him as a player, being coached by him, is the importance of leadership and how to lead. And I'll give you a story that connects to
Yeah.
this. So one day in practice, Coach was frustrated with me, and he would get frustrated with me a lot because he wanted me to display more emotion, and he wanted me to be more vocal. He wanted me to be more outgoing, just in terms of how I connected with the team. And this may have been my freshman year. And one day he was frustrated because I wasn't showing any emotion. And the basketball was like laying right beside us because he was talking to me and the ball was laying right beside us. He said, you know what? I want you to take the ball and I want you to take it. I want you to throw it. I want you to throw the ball to the other side of the court. I'm like, bro, I'm not about to throw this ball to the other side of the court. Like, what is he talking about? Like, he tripping. He crazy. Like, I'm not doing it. But he's like, no, I want you to throw it. And I did it and I threw it. And in the moment, I didn't really understand. But looking back on it, I can see how that was a moment in my life. That was a very pivotal moment in my life. It may not sound like it, but personally, I know it was, because what it did was it taught me how to express myself. And when it comes to leadership, you have to be okay with expressing yourself, because if you never express yourself as a leader, you will never be able to vocalize the things that need to be vocalized in order to bring the impact that you can bring. And so in that moment, it was like a seed was planted on the inside of me to teach me the importance of expression, because all great leaders, they know how to express. Expression doesn't mean explode, but understanding how to express yourself it's a very it's an essential skill that you need in your leadership journey. And when I say leadership, I'm not talking about being the leader, the director of a program, or being, a CEO. I'm just saying simply leading yourself, because all great leaders know how to lead themselves first. So expression is important with leading yourself. You have to be okay with expressing to yourself how you feel. And then you also have to be okay with expressing to others how you feel. So I would say I learned leadership from Coach and how to be a really great leader.
Yeah. In that moment, it just seemed to all click. It all just kind of like planted the seed. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. But I didn't know that
And
then. I didn't know that
yeah,
then. Then I was just like, yo, he tripping.
just like the injury, looking back, now you see it.
Yeah.
Um, but then after that, like you decide basketball isn't going to be your future. What what made you decide I want to pursue something else? And then what are you up to now? And what do you see yourself in the future doing?
Yeah. So what made me decide that basketball didn't have to be my future was when I realized that it wasn't the only thing that I could be good at. Like sometimes I think in life, because we maybe display, um, or maybe I'll say it like this. Sometimes because we are talented in one area, we feel like that's the only area that we can pursue. When being good at something doesn't always mean you have to pursue that thing. Like I could be good at, um, let's say I could be good at, I don't know,
Shooting a
let's
jump
say
shot.
shooting a jump shot. Yeah, take me for example. I
Yeah.
could be good at shooting a jump shot. That doesn't mean that I have to shoot a jump shot for the rest of my life. That could just mean I'm just good at it.
Yeah.
But being good at something it isn't a requirement. Well, it is, but being good at something doesn't always mean that you have to do that thing. And I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier about realizing that what you do doesn't define who you are. And so if you feel like you're good at something and you're allowing the fact that you're good at something define who you are, it could potentially stop you from going a different direction that actually connects more with who you are. And so when I began to understand that, that gave me the freedom to say, okay, I can still be impactful and I can still be influential and I can still help people in a very positive way, even if I don't play basketball, because that's just one of the things that I'm good at, but that's not all of the things that I'm good at. And then that made room for me to apply for the role that I'm now in the
Hmm.
College of Business for the Multicultural Business program as a program coordinator. um, that made space for me to apply for that role. And now I'm here. And now I have a chance to talk to people like you. And now I have a chance to
Yeah.
connect with students. And now I have a chance to really share my story and share the things that I've learned and give it to students in a way where they can get it and move faster than I did. And they can be at a certain place quicker than I was mentally and emotionally
Hmm.
and relationally, so that their lives can be healthy, because I think like having a healthy life is a life that is full of fruit. Like
Hmm.
if you're healthy internally, you know, your job will be healthy, your relationships will be healthy, um, all the things that are connected to you will be healthy. And so that's what I do right now. I'm actually over student development and retention, in the role that I have right now. I do some advising with students. It's not
Okay.
based upon education. It's more like life kind of
Yep.
conversations. I also I'm also connected with this program that we started my first year here called Multifarious. It's like a speaker series where we bring in different speakers and we have them talk to students about, you know, life and how to develop an understanding that, um, you know, you're more than just what you're doing today. And
Hmm.
then also I'm connected with this initiative that we have, that's called business teams. And so we created a space for students, to develop a team to help student athletes get NIL deals. And so
Okay.
my role on that is to be a life coach for the students and the student athletes as well. So to talk to them about kind of what
Awesome.
we're talking about now with
Yeah.
identity and understanding that who you are isn't defined by what you do. As a matter of fact, I have two students sitting outside my office right now waiting for me. Um, but yeah, so that's a little bit of what I do now.
Okay. And then along with that, is there what's the best way for students to kind of reach out to you to kind
Mhm.
of pursue that?
Well, so you can first of all follow our program at MVP underscore dot MSU. MVP, I think it's underscore dot MSU. And
Okay.
then you could follow, and that's on Instagram. And then
All
you
right.
could follow me personally at Kingdom Thinker 7. That's Kingdom Thinker 7.
Okay.
And then you could email me at Langfo36 at msu.edu. That's LANGFO36 at msu.edu.
Awesome. And we'll put that in the description below.
Okay.
So students can reach out to you if they want to reach out. But yeah, Josh, it was great having you on. Just want to wrap up a little bit. Want to say thank you. I really enjoyed the conversation and really enjoyed having you on.
If you like what you
Thanks
just
for having
heard,
me, man. I
please
enjoyed the
like,
conversation.
comment, and share.
Just
MSU WMA,
appreciate
or
what you're
Michigan
doing
State
with
Wealth
this
Management
whole
Association,
initiative and
is
just
a
making
student-run
the space to help
organization
students.
part of
Thanks for
Broad
being
College
on,
of
Josh,
Business,
and
located in East
we'll be in
Lansing,
touch.
Michigan.
Okay.
Our
Thank you.
mission
Have a
is
good
to
one, man.
inspire
You
and
too.
educate next generation of financial planners. Thank you for listening on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please check us out on our channels on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, and check us out on our socials at MSU WMA and msuwma.com.